Hello everyone, this is Dennis Becker. Welcome to the very first weekly web chat. I'm proud and ambitious right now and looking, very hopefully going to start a whole series of Google Hangouts or webinars or whatever it happens to be, depending on who my guest happens to be at the time. And I'm real excited about the fact that my very first guest is going to be Debbie Benstein, who has been an inspiration to me and sort of had some opportunities to embarrass me about the subject that we're going to talk about today, which is branding. And before we get started in a minute or so, I'd like to just ask everyone to type into the chat box that you can hear me loud and clear. And Debbie, if you can say a few words so people can say whether they hear you loud and clear also.
Hi, I'd be happy to say a few words. Just let us know if you can hear us and we'll get going in a minute.
Okay, Barb Jeepers Ling. Who would that be? She says she can hear me, but as I've come to realize, and it's a little frustrating, the time between when we speak and when you hear it, there's a little bit of a lag time, so I'm still waiting for others to pop in and say they can hear us.
I see somebody, Elias, saying no sound.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he's still saying no sound.
Okay. John and Jean says they can hear us. Elias, or however you pronounce it, if you still can't hear us, maybe just leave the Hangout and come back in with the same link, and hopefully you'll be okay. I actually had that problem myself when I logged in and Debbie logged in and she couldn't hear me, and I kept thinking it might be her speakers at her end, or her sound at her end, but it wasn't. It ended up being mine, and so I logged out and in, and Google Hangouts is a little flaky sometimes. So when I logged out and in, then everything was fine. So if you can't hear us, well, you can't hear me giving you the instructions either. So let me type it into the chat, and hopefully if you can't hear, you notice.
Okay.
Okay. Or John says, if you can't hear, refresh.
Mathia, I hope that's the way you say it. She says that they can hear both of us.
Yeah, and Val can.
Okay.
Oh, Elias says he refreshed and now it's working. Okay, great.
Okay. Barb says she loves the accent. I assume she's referring to your accent, Dennis?
No, I don't think so. I have no accent. Not even a Jersey accent, because I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. So
it certainly can't be my accent either.
Oh, no, it can't be. Can't be. So
now, just let me ask you something quickly, Dennis. When I'm talking now, I'm not appearing on the screen. Did you want that to happen, that we switch off between us on the screen, or not? Is there a reason that's not happening?
Well, you are appearing on my screen.
Ah, okay.
When you talk.
Okay, all right then.
So
on my screen, I'm not appearing when I talk, but that's okay.
Maybe you clicked on the box for me, which you could unclick.
Yeah.
Because when I talk, I appear, and when you talk, you appear. So it's working normally for me, and hopefully for others also.
Okay, good.
But anyway, okay, everybody, thanks for coming. I'm sure more people will be logging in as we speak, but we're a few minutes past the start time. I always like to start on time. And again, this is the first ever weekly web chat that I'm going to try to do as often as possible on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If it's not a good time, particularly for some people, which I apologize for, but there's never a time that's perfect for everyone. So the good thing about Google Hangouts is that immediately after the Hangout ends, it gets uploaded to YouTube. And the good thing about Webinar Jam, which I've just started using and think I'm in love with, it enables you to register and have a unique link for yourself. And that link is not only a link to the live Hangout right now, if you were to come in, but if we were offline, if we had ended, it'll link straight to the replay. So you can always listen again or listen for the first time. So with that being said, again, my guest today on the first ever weekly web chat is Debbie Benstein, and I'm thrilled. She had a little conversation with me 2 or 3 weeks ago, and when I was thinking about having her on as a guest, and she asked me 2 or 3 questions, and I thought that I was branding myself fairly well as a $5 guy and as somebody that is reputable and people can feel comfortable listening to and whatever as far as recommendations. And she asked me a couple quick questions, and I really was embarrassed to not be able to answer them very well. So Debbie, I want you to give as much of a presentation as you want. We'll pop back in with questions. Anybody that has a question, I'll try to monitor the chat box as much as I can. But if I overlook a particular question because the chats are going by so fast and furiously, we'll at the end also pick up anything that we might have missed. So I might have to ask you to type in your question again. So Debbie, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. This all came about really because I was talking to Dennis about branding. He had mentioned there was a question about branding in his group on Facebook, and a lot of the people who were answering that question were just talking about how they were branding their own businesses or their own products, and I didn't feel that any of the answers to the question about how are you going about branding yourself were really hitting the mark. So I kind of jumped in and said, well, to me, at least, that's not branding. And my background in the real world is as a marketing consultant. I've been doing that for 30 years or so, 20 years on my own. So I've done a lot of branding for a lot of different companies, a lot of different situations. And what I was seeing was a lot of confusion between what branding is to small businesses and what it could be and what it should be. And I think the question that I had asked Dennis, if I'm right, Dennis, one of the things that I asked, which to me sums up branding, is why should I work with you and not with your competitor? Answer that question and you've got your brand. And I think, Dennis, what would you say about that, your answer to that question that I had asked you?
Well, I think you pretty much stumped me on that question. I think the first question that sort of embarrassed me is when you asked me, where would someone go to find out more about me? And I hemmed and hawed, and I said, well, you could type in my name into Google, and there'll be other Dennis Beckers too, and but nothing particularly is a page that I'm particularly proud of that has all of my accomplishments and books and teachings and samples of what I do and all that. So I've been inspired to get to work on that.
Right.
As well as the fact is, go ahead. Sorry.
No, after you.
Okay. Well, as well as the fact that you asked me, if my brand is a $5 guy, do I have the domain name $5buckguy.com, which I didn't. Yeah. What do I do now? But there's nothing there yet. But there perhaps will be. But at least you advised me to at least take that domain name so that no one else could.
Right. There's a lot of branding is pushing your brand out there, and the other half of it, at least, is protecting your brand and your promise from anybody else who might encroach upon it. So there's really two halves to the branding equation in any case. So the first thing really when you're thinking about branding is to figure out what is it that you're promising. What is your promise to your prospects? If you get that right, then you'll actually have a brand. Most people that talk about brand kind of figure out that it's mentioning their company name in as many places as possible, but it isn't. It really isn't. There's so much more to branding than that. It includes things that also I think we talked about, Dennis, things like your logo, your visual branding, your colors, anything that you do with images, anything that you do with a tagline would be part of your branding. all that is part of your messaging. You really have to start off with branding. The very first thing you have to do is know who you're branding to, who the audience is out there that you're trying to reach. And if anybody says to me, well, everybody needs my product, that's really a mistake. And it's a mistake that not only beginners make, but also more advanced marketers make, because you'd like to be able to sell whatever it is you're doing to everybody, but not every that. You can't be all things to all people. So you really have to figure out what the message is going to be and how you're going to get that message across. And what I thought I would do quickly is to go over what my branding is for my website and talk about the process that I'm going through. And it is a process. So if I can figure out how to go into the screen share now, I want to show you my website and just talk a little bit about how I built my branding, what's good about it, where the problems are with it, and that may be useful as a case study for people to be able to jump off and think about their own branding as well. So let me just see if I can go in and go into a screen share. I ought to be able to find.
If you hover over your screen, you'll see on the left-hand side the Hangouts.
Right, I'm just looking for, it's all showing me things that I don't want to see though.
The green box with the arrow.
Yeah. The thing that I particularly wanted to show is not coming up. So I don't know why. Let me try that again. Hold on. Not at all sure why I can't get onto the particular site that I want to. Hold on a second. Sorry, everybody. That's what you get when you get a non-techie doing these things. I've got exactly enough knowledge to be quite dangerous when it comes to these things. So I'd actually like to see if I can get into Google. Perhaps I could go there from Google. But honestly, I'm seeing 6 things on my screen, and none of them is what I want to be showing you. So I'm not quite sure how to do this now. Second. Let me give it one more go.
Maybe seeing some tabs on your computer. And
yeah, I see the tabs, but the tabs are not showing me what I want to get to right now. Let me try it one more time. I think technology sees me coming, honestly, sees me coming and says, don't you dare. That's what I think. Hold on. None of these are taking me where I want to go. I wonder why not.
Well, go to one of the tabs, and when you see what it opens up, then go to that tab that you're sharing and type in Google or whatever you want to be.
But the problem is they're showing me things on my computer as opposed to something online. And I don't know why. Never mind. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
I will describe my branding based on what I've got here. If you see this, I'll talk about this. Okay? The marketing morsels, and then you can go to marketingmorsels.com as a rescue from this and go and have a look at the branding yourself there, and I'll just talk about why it is like it is. So the first thing that I did when I was thinking about my branding, and it's almost before I did anything else, before I went out online, as it were. I'm really quite a stealth marketer when it comes to being online. And I less things for myself, but recently I've been building up my own brand online with the idea that I want to share the marketing knowledge that I have and build out more in that direction. So before I even did that, I thought about the one big issue that I had, which was, why would you work with me? There are millions of marketing consultants, and anybody and his uncle now says I'm a marketing consultant and puts themselves out there. So who is going to work with me, and who do I want to work with? So those, if you like, were my first questions, and I had a very clear idea of what problem I wanted to solve, partly because it's my personality and partly because it's really something that I cared very deeply about. And I wanted to help small businesses who didn't have marketing departments, who didn't have a real depth of knowledge in marketing, but who were really good at what they did. And that could be a whole range of of small businesses. In fact, it's also small businesses in the real world who need to go online, as well as businesses online that need to get the message out further. So it's a very wide range. And I knew that those kinds of people didn't have the time or the knowledge to do a lot themselves, but they knew that it was important to do marketing. So from that came the idea of small chunks of marketing that they could cope with, because I think you can't run away from marketing in your business. You really shouldn't. But I know that a lot of the time, from my experience working in the real world with people who are definitely unsure and overwhelmed and hard to decide which marketing to do first and second and third and all of, so I wanted to come along and help with that. So for me, when I was playing around with that aspect, that was going to be my message. No more overwhelmed, step by step, small, tasty chunks of marketing. And then the morsels fit in perfectly with that. And I happen to like alliteration, so I went for the marketing morsels, because it's a brand name that contains within it my marketing message. Now, it doesn't always happen with marketing messages. It doesn't always happen with the brands, but it's one way to do it. And for me to go online with that was a particularly good way, I think, for me. It fit with who I am and what I wanted to say. And the other important thing to bear in mind when you're thinking about this for yourself in your own process is, how expandable is that brand going to be? Where can it take you and how can it limit you? So from my perspective, the Marketing Morsels brand allowed me to go into a lot of different directions. At the beginning, when you're branding, you don't always know where you're going to go. Lots of new opportunities come up, or maybe a different direction, or a new marketplace, or who knows for the future. So you've got to be careful when you're branding at the beginning, especially if you're branding a business rather than your name. You have to be very in a direction that can expand logically, and that you won't, after 6 months or a year, find yourself suddenly tied into a positioning that you didn't expect to be tied into. So for me, Marketing Morsels allows the expansion because, for instance, one of the things, and I actually planned all of this out almost before I definitely decided that I would take that name and use that branding, I can go in lots of different directions that are associated with Marketing Morsels. So I have a direction now of coming out with small guides, each one on a specific marketing topic. They're called bite-size guides. The bite size fits in very nicely with the Marketing Morsels. It's the same theme. It's exactly the same messaging. It's small. It won't take you long to read it. It's tasty. It will get you where you need to go with your marketing for that particular thing that I'm writing about. So it's expandable very easily. I had a Skype group, for instance, that I called Feedback on Tap. That also came out of the fact that, feedback has a pun in it on the food side of things. So does on tap have that pun. It's a little bit whimsical. I like to put humor in my branding because that's part of who I am as well. I like my marketing to be fun as well as serious. So it all kind of came together like that. And if I want to go to different areas in the future, I can do things like smorgasbord. I can do marketing tidbits. I can go in lots of different directions, marketing recipes. I have to be a little bit careful not to be too trite with it, but it does give me lots and lots of room to come out with different series of books, for instance, or lots of different ways that I can approach this. Even in my products, I, at the beginning when I was planning it, worked out that I could have a starter pack, I could have a main course. Again, it's a pun on course from food and course in terms of learning. And I can have the gourmet section, which is higher level products where people want to work with me one-on-one. And it all fits in with that branding. It all stays as a group, and you can recognize me from those kinds of sub-brands, if you like. Now, the Marketing Morsels logo came about. Actually, somebody in Own 1K a Day did it for me. Phil, thank you. Thank you for that logo, because I think it's worked really well for me. It doesn't always happen, but if you can, when you're working on your logo, and everybody should have a logo, everybody, even if it's just your name, you should have a logo, and I'll talk about that in a minute as to why. But you have, for my marketing, the Marketing Morsels that you're seeing in my lower third now has that little bite taken out of it. And that's very visual. It reminds you that we're talking about morsels. The visual matches with the name, which matches with the subject matter that I'm dealing with. So it all comes together. The aim is to be consistent, to come together as a cohesive whole, if you can, with your branding. So that it's not just getting your name out there, it's combined with the visuals, with the message, with the positioning, everything together. So the bite-sized guides actually that I run also have that little bite taken out of them as well. It's a very similar logo because I want people to know it's part of the same stable of products, if you like. So to me, because I want people to recognize me online. And I know from my own inbox, which is full of other people's messages, that if they don't find a way to let themselves stand out to me, I won't know who they are. And the way to help them stand out is through their branding. It's so that I know they're different and I've recognized who they are. If I looked at my inbox today and there was probably a whole page full of offers or people similar to me, if you like, similar probably to you, Dennis, who are trying to help me, in many cases trying to sell me something at the same time. And I don't remember who the heck they are. I don't remember where I signed up for their lists. I don't remember what they do, what they're offering me, why I should read their stuff. And most of the time I don't open their emails because I can't remember who they are. Most of the time I see things that say support at whatever, or it just says support, or it just says admin. People haven't bothered to really put the effort in to let me know who they are, to remind me. And that's part of branding. That's keep your promise in front of me. What did you promise to give me? Live up to that promise. Answer the question, why should I work with you? Why should I still follow you? Why should I buy from you? That's what's front and center for me. And the flip side of that, when I'm thinking about my branding, and I'm really pleased that it's worked this way for me, because I have such specific branding, I know what I'm promising people and I have to live up to that. It allows me to focus far better. In other words, my branding doesn't just allow other people to know who I am. It helps me to serve them better because I'm always looking to be true to that branding. If somebody comes along and offers me something and says, here, promote it to your list, or get your people to buy this, or let's do a joint venture together, I immediately have that term, that frame of reference that says, does this fit with the things that I'm promising my prospects, that I'm promising my customers? And it makes it very easy for me to focus because I have my brand and it better fit in with my brand. And if it doesn't, it's very easy for me to say, no, thank you, it's not a good fit for me. And it saves me a tremendous amount of time and it keeps me on the path that I'm following. So there's an additional added value to having a brand from that point of view, if you like. Now, what I wanted to say also about marketing morsels in terms of growing it is that now, and this is for anybody's brand, where I am now with my brand is not necessarily at all where I'm going to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years. It will be, broadly speaking, going down the same highway, but I'm sure that I'm going to be growing in one direction more than another direction, and you have to build into your branding that flexibility. So what I wanted to say also about, for instance, the email lists, everywhere that you go online, you should have your logo. It should be visible. I should know who you are from the very first time that I sign up for your list. The very first time. Figure out a way to tell me something about you and who you are at the beginning, and keep the visuals as a main part of that. Now, I know, Dennis, you don't have a logo yet. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is how you feel about, for instance, the $5 guy. For somebody who doesn't know you, what does the $5 guy say, do you think? Somebody who's never heard of you online.
If they've never heard of me, it doesn't say much, does it? Other than I try to be consistent with that sort of nickname in my signatures and in my...
Whatever you do. All of us who know you and love you, we know that the $5 guy started out from the original ebook that you wrote, and we know why you wrote it, but somebody coming in who's new to your story, or who comes in from a different angle, and you do have so many great products online that they could come in from various different channels and
Right.
not just from there. I don't think they're going to know what the $5 guy means, except to say, maybe he's cheap, or maybe that's what it costs, or maybe all his products are priced that way, or it's not clear branding from that point of view. Whereas I think, why you branded like that, and I think the underlying sentiment is fantastic, but it doesn't quite fit without some more explanation, which is why I suggested to you to have maybe the $5 guy website where people could come and check you out and find out your story and look at your whatever products you wanted to showcase there, to get a sense of who you are, who the whole Dennis Becker is. And you have it much harder in that context than I do. I have to say, in terms of branding, I've got it relatively easy on one hand, and actually a little bit harder now with the marketing morsels, which is also something I wanted to bring up in discussion now. There are easily several Dennis Beckers online. So when you type in your name online, not necessarily you're going to come up. You do come up, fairly frequently on the first page, actually. I checked you out. But not necessarily, is that always going to be the case? You're competing with all the other Dennis Beckers. I don't know which one of you is the right one on Facebook, for instance, if I'm just trying to find you. Or on LinkedIn, it's much harder for me to actually do my due diligence and check you out because there are more of you. I happen to be very lucky online. In the entire online world, there is just one me. So if you go, so I can't really talk about how difficult it is to get your name on the first page of Google in terms of your branding, because I put my name on something and it's there. So I'm lucky in that context. But I will say also, in terms of possibly defending your brand, marketing morsels now, other people have started to use it. When I first started, I've had that domain name since 2005. And then it was a home run. Nobody was using anything to do with marketing morsels online. But now, all of a sudden, there are competitors. Now, they can't have the domain name because that's mine, and nobody's bought the .net or the .org or anything yet. But they are, for instance, there are people there's somebody who took the LinkedIn marketing morsels, which I was very peeved about.
Mm-hmm.
They took it, early on. I've got the Facebook one. I've got Pinterest. I've got, a lot of the other ones. As I have free time and nothing else to do in my day, I go and I take every single social media place that I can for my branding. And everybody should be doing that now. And make sure that it's consistent when you do it, even if you think that you're not going to be using it. So Dennis, if you want to pursue the $5 guy, go and take it everywhere that you can find. Certainly, the top level social media sites,
Right.
certainly, and then bit by bit, when you've got 10 minutes here and there, just protect the brand. It's absolutely critical, because other people will come in, and they can, and it's perfectly fine. Somebody who isn't based where I am can call themselves marketing morsels somewhere else. That's perfectly legitimate. But I want to be the one that's found for it.
Right.
So
as long as we haven't trademarked our name, then it is completely appropriate for someone else to grab it. I mean, if we tried to grab Coca-Cola as far as a Facebook name, they could come in and, I'm sure they have themselves already, but, if not, they could come in and say, you're cyber squatting and send out a cease and desist. But as far as a $5 guy, I haven't trademarked that name and probably never will. But you're right. I think there's a couple very good suggestions among all of them. But the one is that you want to, in the beginning, decide what your brand is going to be. Now, you're not going to, absolutely know where you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years or even 2 years. But I mean, when I look back at my history, I just created the nickname the $5 guy because I was starting a forum for readers of my $5 a day ebook. So I wanted to make sure that people knew that, when they saw my post, that it was coming from the guy that wrote the book. But if I'd have thought better, I might not have wanted to pigeonhole myself quite so much for the future. So you want to make sure that you don't put yourself inside a box, because like I always tell people, you want to be thinking outside the box. Next year and the year after and whatever, your business is going to expand, as you said, and you want to allow yourself room to grow without
Right. And
having to rebrand yourself from the beginning.
that's very true. And the other thing you want to do is find some kind of a positioning, which is where you fit in the market against your competitors, if you like, which is unique to you. So that now I'm known for bite-sized guides, small chunks of useful information. That kind of branding is my branding. Nobody else is going to come along and exactly take away that branding from me in the circles in which I am, in the circles in which I'm working. So they're going to have to find different ways to say, this is why you should work with me. So that's very important. The other thing that I think should be considered when you're trying to decide if at all you're going to go down the branding route, which I highly recommend for everybody. For me, it's not a question at all. Everybody should be branding, even if it's your name as opposed to a business. Because once you're working online and you're then, let's say you're into product creation and you're making products, if you're not branding those products, it's uphill all the time to get the name of the product out there as a separate name. And you don't have the goodwill that you built up from being part of the brand. And you just lose sales like that. It's a lot harder to get and keep business like that. If, for instance, somebody likes one of my bite-sized brand reports, it's very easy for them to turn around and say, okay, that's a series that made sense to me. Let's get the next one. It's the same with the dummy series, for instance. Anybody that liked the dummy series, or the idiot series, I personally hated that branding. I think it's to me, I have grave concerns about that branding. But hey, it's multi-million-dollar brand now, so who am I to say? But super successful, because once you have the brand, everything else falls under the brand, and your business life is so much easier. It's so much easier. You know what you're getting, you know what you're buying, and if you like it and you follow it, it's much easier for you to take out your wallet or your credit card and buy the next thing in that series. So it's a smart business decision to be branding from the beginning in any case. If you have a problem, I think like Dennis has somewhat with, perhaps other people will have taken your sites online that you would like to be branded. If you're branding your name as opposed to a business brand, I do have a suggestion for that. Lots and lots of people find that you may have been able to take your name, for instance, in LinkedIn in some way, but you find you can't get it on Facebook. So all of a sudden you're adding a middle initial into it. A lot of people have that issue. Please, please be consistent, because if suddenly you've got a middle initial on some of your branding, but you haven't on the other part of your branding, people won't know it's the same person. You're not actually branding one person then. You're branding two separate people, the one with the initial and the one without the initial. So you really have to find a different way to do it. If you're an author, for instance, I would recommend adding writer perhaps to your name when you're trying to close out these sites and get your branding on them. Something to make sure that the same exact name is being used wherever you are online, so people can be sure it's actually you.
Good advice. Let me ask you something, Debbie. I was
Yes.
thinking while I was listening to you. For people like me, and I'm not sure about you, but I'm very graphically and artistically uninclined. Part of branding would be, as you said, your logos and maybe your fonts and maybe your the colors you choose. What do you do there? Do you get help, or do you just wing it? I mean, for example, why did you choose that particular shade of green?
Oh, okay. I chose a particular shade of green, the blue and the green. I do know a little bit about color in terms of use in business. And I went, if you look at a lot of different logos, once you start looking at them, you start realizing how similar they are. A lot of financial business type logos and the branding for those companies are either orange and blue or green and blue. Blue because traditionally it is a business color, and green because subliminally it's a color for success. It's
Hmm.
subliminally kind of like in the direction of money, if you like. I was just working with a financial organization who actually had branded themselves previously with red all over their branding. And the very first thing I said was, please, please get rid of the red, because if you're in a financial profession, red has a negative meaning.
All right, red
So there's
ink.
some red ink. You're in the red. It's not what I would choose in terms of a color for a business,
Okay,
financially
so
based business. But really for so from my perspective, what did I do with that? I did outsource the logo. I had an idea of what I wanted in my head, and I took somebody to do it. Once it's done, it's done. It's not something that I am planning to repeat anytime in the future. I'm very happy with what I got. You outsource it. Outsource it. You should have an idea of colors. I think to some extent colors are a little bit overrated. What you really want is two main colors and maybe a couple of subordinate colors that you can use for accents in what you're doing. And so long as they go together, it doesn't matter all that much. A lot of people will go, oh, how could you say that, Debbie? But in all, but in all honesty, in the truth of it, so long as they're not clashing and terrible, it's not something to get, it's not something to stop you. You shouldn't let it stop you. Choose
did
something that you like and run with it.
did you accept the first logo that your designer came back to you with, or did you have him tweak it one or more times?
I think he tweaked it a little bit, just a little bit, but it was pretty close to what I had in mind, so it was good.
Okay.
Um, excuse me, I'm losing my voice already from this. So it's not something to be scared of. It's not something, you can fix all of these things in the future. Marketing is supposed to be a process. So don't be scared of marketing because you think I have to get it right now. None of us get it right. Not even the most professional of us get it right first time all the time. That's the point. The point of marketing is to try something. Some of us can make better educated guesses than others of us. That's what I do. I make very good educated guesses, but sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I didn't quite read the market. Sometimes the market didn't respond the way that I thought it would. That's the fun of it. That's the challenge. You change direction slightly, you try something else, you check it, you evaluate it. That's the same with the branding too. One of the best things to do with branding when you're starting out is actually to ask your potential audience first. Say, why are you working with me now? You've got resources there that you can use. You can say to your existing clients, your existing buyers, why did you choose to buy from me? And you'll pick up a lot of good raw data just by speaking to the people you're already in contact with. And they may not have the same perception of you that you have of yourself. So it is actually important to ask them why they're working with you and why they made the decision. And the other good way, by the way, to figure this out for yourself and to get more, I do think you have to be attuned to branding and attuned to marketing in general. And one of the best ways to do it, that I do this all the time, is figure out why you buy something. It can be in the store, it can be in the street, it can be what's attracted you to, I don't know what, the latest peanut butter in the store. It doesn't matter what it is. Why am I choosing this brand over that brand? What makes me make my buyer decisions? So I was sitting on the fence for a day recently, thoroughly enjoying the fact that I couldn't decide whether to buy this product online or not. And I was reading through the whole sales letter and jotting down where the sales letter was jarring me and where I thought they were speaking to me and where I thought they weren't. And in the end, I decided not to buy, but I actually analyzed very carefully what made me make that decision. And that's hugely helpful when you're talking about branding and about marketing in general, because you have to try and put yourself in the mindset of your prospects, your partners, anybody that you come into contact with. You have to really get inside their head. And I have said it in many different forums, you are not your client, you're not your customer. Sometimes you can't, it really takes work to understand where they're coming from. The minute you do, your branding is better, you're going to get your branding right, and you're going to make a connection, a deeper connection with those people. And that's just going to catapult what you're doing in business in general. And that's also why branding is so, so important for this.
Great. Do you want to try to do the screen share again? If you can't seem to get it, maybe you could tell me where you want me to, what URL you want me to display, and I could try to do it screen sharing from my computer.
Why don't you try, if you can, try and go to my website. What I want to show you is the if you can go to the sign up for the branding checklist. Can you get to that page on my site?
Oh, that's not good.
If not, we just...
That's a tunnel effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could do that. I could do that all by myself, that tunnel effect.
Let me...
All right. While you're doing that, I'll just talk about something else briefly, about where you should put your logo and why you should put it everywhere. And I have to say, Dennis, you are guilty of this because I just checked. I'm less guilty because I just fixed mine. When you're getting people to sign up for a list and you have that, and it clicks through, if it's a double opt-in, they click through and it goes to a little page that says, you've almost completed the process. You know, there's an email there. On that thank you page, you must have your logo, because that's going to help people remember you and recognize you. And as many times online, in as many touch points between you and your prospects, that's what you need to have. So you're almost
right.
getting in. You are sharing.
Yeah, I am sharing. Where do you want me to go to?
If you just go to the front page of my website to start off with.
What is your website? Marketing Morsels?
Marketing Morsels, yeah. Marketing Morsels. Oops. I wonder why I can't get there from my site.
A new tab in Firefox. I don't know if you're using Firefox or Chrome or what. Oh.
It's spelled...
Sorry. Marketing.
It's all right. I do that all the time.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can just hover over, if you look at my top tab, for instance, in terms of how much the branding comes together as a whole in my brand, but it really ought to be in anybody's brand, for how everything fits together cohesively, and then it makes sense to the people who are coming to your site. For instance, on this one, I don't have the usual things at the top there of that. Partly because, as I said, I like a little bit of whimsy, a little bit of humor in my site. And partly because I wanted to do something different. I need to stand out from the crowd. I need to be different from all the other marketing consultants that are out there in terms of my positioning, in terms of what I have to say as well. And I'm, sometimes very opinionated about things. And I'm quite happy to have, heated discussions with people about where I stand on things. But if you look at the top navigation there, you'll see that there are two tabs there which you won't find, generally speaking, in other websites. One is called Meat and Potatoes, and if you just hover over the Meat and Potatoes, for instance, you'll see what comes up there. What comes up there for me, Meat and Potatoes, is the basics of the marketing, the planning and the tactics, more establishing the strategy that you're going to be using. Also going to be including branding. So you have that on one side. If you just move across to the gourmet marketing.
Okay.
things. So it's all part of the same branding. People will look at that and subliminally remember that that was different. That wasn't a boring site where they just said, here are the marketing subjects and what do you do with that. It has more oomph to it, if you like, and deliberate. If you go down, if you slide down a little bit, if you scroll down, no, just down the whole page, if you would.
Okay.
You'll see also the Wrath of Debbie. The Wrath of Debbie has been quite a successful part of the site, again, because it sets me apart. Now, this is not a whole lecture on my site. I'm trying to use this as an example of my thinking for branding so that other people maybe can take the examples of why I made certain decisions and extrapolate them to their own branding. That's the point of this. It's not to look at my site and for the entire time we're on here. But the Wrath of Debbie, again, is something different. It says that I'm not somebody who's going to take private label rights and just put them on my site and hang out my shingle as a marketing consultant. I have something to say, and I think good businesses have something to say, and they have to find their own ways of saying it. And a big part of branding is getting the messages right. What is it that you have to say? What do your products stand for? What are you hoping to achieve with them? I know with your $5 guide, Dennis, I know exactly where I would take you in terms of that branding. Because to me, the $5 guy is somebody who cares deeply about helping people make progress online. So something that you've always said is that you're very into incremental progress. And that $5 is the incremental progress.
Right.
So to me, that some measure, I mean, it's not a completely thought out plan yet, but that's who you are. You're the person who encourages people to take the next step and the step after that and see that progress $5 at a time until you're making 1,000, 2,000, 10,000. That's the meaning to me of the $5 guy. You start here and you keep making more and more $5 until you really make it.
Right. That's what I intended in the beginning, and I realize now that I haven't actually communicated it all that well to people that don't know me well yet.
Yet. My favorite word in marketing, for sure, is the word yet.
Yeah.
Because we all live in that world of, I haven't done it yet. So we're going to do it. I mean, there's so many things that I haven't done with my marketing also. So many things. But I'm okay with that, because so long as I'm moving progress with marketing, that's all we can ask of ourselves. That's all we can do. So there's always going to be more to do. That's the fun of it. And you can tell I love marketing, but I like real marketing. I'm not into the hype stuff. That's not what I do. If you look also on my site, you'll see that the sign up even takes this idea also. My sign up isn't a regular, join my newsletter kind of sign up. It's a take a bite and give me something to chew on, and it's all part of that same persona, if you like, which is not really it's not completely a persona, because it's kind of what I'm like anyway. So it has to fit with you. It has to sit right. And I know it took me a long time to figure out branding in terms of what I felt would be right for me. So I don't expect anybody to do their branding in a day or two and just work it out. That's not how branding works. So you might write down some ideas and sit with them for a day or two and then ask people about them, and then it's a process of refining as you go along to see how it is going to work for you, how it's going to fit with your existing products. I definitely recommend, in your case, Dennis, and in a lot of other people actually that I see online, if you've got a lot of products, to streamline them into some kind of system where they get branded into groups, because it's going to make selling so much more profitable once people can see there's a natural progression through this. For instance, I don't know, people can take all their traffic products or all their, I don't know, conversion products, whatever it is that they're doing, and try and categorize them into different groups and have those groups be branded so that people can say that's rather than that's one product, and what else have they done, and go to a different website. I made a conscious decision with this one to put all my products on one site, because the branding for me is so much easier when everything's under one umbrella. If it wasn't under the one umbrella, I'd find myself branding and not branding very well lots of different products, and that would be so much harder for me to deal with, and I'd be chasing around so many different avenues online. I don't think I could keep up with it. Having everything under one umbrella is easier on me, and it's going to be more profitable. It's definitely going to be more profitable. So that's what I think about branding. That's a little bit of what I think about branding. I think everybody should start branding.
I think you've convinced me about that.
Do you want? You can take the screen share off now if you like.
Yeah, I think I just did. Yeah, okay. Now we had a discussion recently in our Facebook group about like phrases that people find annoying on sales pages or in emails or whatever. I think it's probably important that you consider that before you decide what your branding should be. Maybe you could say a little bit about that. But for example, I remember one series of products that a marketer, I won't mention the name of, had a while back, which was XYZ on crack, ABC on crack. That to me is something that you may not want to brand yourself quite that way, and you know, especially it may not be obvious to everybody that a certain phrase is something that might annoy someone from a different country or a different religion, or you know, a different part of the world. How do you?
Absolutely. One of the things that doesn't get taken into account nearly enough online are cultural differences. I'll just deal with that to start with, and then we'll go back to all those phrases that drive me crazy. The cultural differences are huge online in terms of what will be acceptable to some, you know, one person may not to another, and I won't even talk about the divide, which is a cultural chasm sometimes all of its own. But just in terms of the language, so what's acceptable in the States may not even be understood by British people. So it's always worthwhile to check when you're picking a brand name, run it through trademark databases in America, in Europe if you can. Make sure that it doesn't sound, just type it into Google, see what comes up, especially if you've invented a name for your business. Type it and see whether it comes up as something crazy in a language that you don't know about, because there are some horrific stories that I could share with you about that. It's not worth it. Do your due diligence and make sure that you're taking cultural differences into account, and also the needs and the interests of your potential audience. For me, has connotations of war in a brand. I just don't like it. So anything that's got killer or crushing or explosion or anything of those kinds of things, to me they sound very hypey. They're not based, generally speaking, in fact. At least the title puts me off, so half the time I don't go and look to see if that would be something I would want. And I think people perhaps forget that may speak more to one gender rather than the other. So it's important to as part of your branding to figure out who it is you're talking to while you're still at the stage of thinking, what am I going to call this series? What am I going to do about branding myself? I think that's critical, and I think there have been a lot of mistakes made with that recently, where people have followed, and I think that's something I see online a lot. There are a lot of followers that say, okay, somebody made tens of thousands of dollars from their launch, and their product was called Crusher, so mine can be called something similar because that's what people want. But there's no, people did buy it, whatever the product was, but there's nothing to say that you can't do something differently and be a suggestion on that. My main recommendation would be just be true to who you are. Be true to where you're going to be comfortable in business. If you're comfortable with, a crusher branding, that's fine. You will have a market for that. I won't be your market. That's also fine. Maybe I'm not meant to be your market. But know that going in when you're choosing your branding.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if are you ready for questions? I haven't been following the chat box very closely because I've been engrossed in what Debbie's been saying. So we can go back if you want to, and I'll start reading off questions.
Okay.
Or I don't know if you're seeing them. If you would rather do it yourself and just answer them.
It would be great if you'll read them, and I'll try and answer the ones that I can.
Okay. And if I miss anybody, feel free to type it in again. Okay, the first one, okay. Andrew says, do I work for $5 an hour because I'm the $5 guy? No, and I don't sell anything on Fiverr either. And that may have been a unfortunate that site came about after I branded myself as a $5 guy. Right. Fiverr.com, their brand is good, but that you can get all sorts of things done very, very cheaply, and maybe not. Okay, Judy likes your bite-sized morsels approach. What do you do about different spellings? Sharon asks. I'm pretty much the only Sharon Sheldon, but there are a ton of Sharon Sheldons. And Sharon spells her name with Sharyn. Branding.
If you have a name that's prone to different spellings, and you can get the second spelling and redirect it to your own website, that's obviously the best way to do it. Otherwise, it's really just going to be a matter of taking your name, and if you have a Y in your name, that's actually better because you're slightly more unusual, and then getting that name out there and branding it properly.
Did you take the domain debbybenstein.com?
No, I don't. I'm actually very lucky that I don't really need to because there's only me. I could take it for the alternative, but I don't think that from my purposes, it's actually going to do me much good. It won't tremendously benefit me to do that.
Okay. Let's see. Judy says she wouldn't wing colors unless you understand the meanings of colors. I think you explained about red being something you might not want to do because of the subliminal connotations to it and in certain particular niches.
Right. On the other hand, though, you'll find that I'm gonna say this, and it may sound a little bit controversial, but marketing, honest to goodness, is a lot of common sense. That a lot of marketing consultants would have you believe that it's very complicated. At a certain level, that there's for sure there's a lot of skill sets that I have when I'm working in marketing consultancy and figuring out strategies. But for most people, marketing really comes down to common sense. Even when it comes to colors, that it's not such a huge risk. It's much more of a risk to do nothing than it is to do something and see how it flies. And I think what scares people a lot with marketing is what happens if I get it wrong? My best advice, get it wrong. Get it wrong and go out and then look at the result. The only mistake, the response or the result that you had from whatever marketing you tried. If you're trying something, the big thing in marketing is to evaluate what you've done. You must be evaluating your marketing. Then it's a circular route, if you like. You have an idea, you put it into practice, you evaluate it, you learn the lessons, you go back with a new idea, and you do the whole thing again. So long as you're doing that and you have that evaluation piece, you're not going to go too far wrong, because you're going to be making progress, you're going to be learning.
I see a comment from Judy that I think is very appropriate and sort of put things into perspective for me. Now, sometimes you mentioned going to the store and seeing a jar of peanut butter, and you reach for one jar over another for whatever reason. You may not even know why you're doing that, but you know, and one jar of peanut butter might be $4, and one jar of peanut butter might be $2. And Judy says that, for example, that Procter and Gamble, the big company, often spends more money on the packaging than the contents of the packaging, as well as the advertising, as well as the branding that went into it. And you know, it may not be as big a deal with us as info marketers, because we really don't have cost as far as contents of what we sell, other than our first time cost. We create it once and could sell it 100 times or 1,000 times or 50,000 times without any incremental extra cost in it. But I think it's a good thing to remember that the cost of a particular product isn't always based on the contents of the product.
It's very, very true. And in terms of pricing, that's the case as well. Depending on who your market is, you may easily find that the perception of the value of the product is higher, and you'll sell more at a higher price. That's a very, very common thing to find. So even when it comes to the buying decision in terms of pricing, that's a direct connection to branding. That's a direct connection to where you're positioning yourself in the marketplace as well. You can sell the same thing for $10. You can sell exactly the same thing for $100, depending on how you're positioning it, how you're marketing it, and to whom.
Sharon, I guess we're towards the end of the comments where I was doing the screen share for you, and Sharon says, "Well done. Now I can teach the rest of you how to do that." Or get John and Ted, who are my Hangout advisors and the gurus as far as Google Hangouts, onto a weekly web chat, and they are scheduled for one. I don't remember exactly when, but they're one coming up, so we'll definitely get them on and go through some of the techie details, which
I'll be right there.
Challenges both Debbie and myself. Let's see. My webcam went away. Maybe it'll come back. I just see my avatar now. I don't know about you, but can you still hear me, Debbie?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, now I'm back. Okay. Sharon says, "What's your views on rebranding and how to do that, or keeping your old brand and starting a new one too?" That's what she's about to do, hopefully soon. Again, we can't even imagine at the beginning of our businesses where our marketing and our product development is going to take us. So what happens when you need to change?
It's either a very good thing or it's a disaster. Usually, generally speaking, you have to go through a process, and the process has to include a marketing plan. You have to look at why you need to rebrand, what was good and what was less successful about the old brand, and it really does depend on the reasons for the rebranding. If you're going into a different market, if you're slightly changing the product, it's very hard to comment without actually knowing the specifics of the situation. But I would definitely advise you to understand completely why you need the rebranding, what the purpose of the new rebranding is, and to have a marketing plan in place with the safeguard of the evaluation stage, so that you can check sooner rather than later how the rebranding is going and make adjustments as you need to earlier on in the process. Because what you don't want to have happen, which I've seen, is if you haven't planned that out, if you don't have the marketing plan in place, when you're rebranding, you could be in exactly the same because you haven't quite put your finger on what needed to change and why, and really taken that into account. So you really have to be sure about what the reasons are and how you're moving forward with the rebrand.
Okay, here's a good one, Debbie, which
Yes.
a few people have said, yeah, I want to see that. Um, you're sort of famous in
What?
the Earn 1K a Day forum, at least, if not otherwise.
Oh, they're going to talk about my desk, aren't they?
They want to see what the underside of your desk looks like.
I'm
Can you
sorry, that's
can you move your webcam down there and let us see?
I'm sorry, that's classified information. I'm
Oh,
unable to share with you.
okay. Well, uh, maybe next time.
But isn't that interesting? In terms of branding, that's part of my personal brand, if you like. People know that about me. That
Hmm.
says something already. Thank you, guys. I like that.
Yeah, some people do remember you well. Um, let's see. Judy says, in drama class, they taught us that the best staging is a staging that's not noticed. So is that probably applicable to branding too? I think it's a good comment.
I think the best branding feels natural. I do. I think that it's not forced. It flows with the product. It has to match the product. It has to be the right fit for the product and for the person who's, if it's personal branding. I could never brand myself as, I don't know, one of those products that we always see with the guy with the visor and the gun and whatever. It has to fit who you are. And I think that's very important. Once it does, it becomes natural, and people accept that that's an individual are very often very similar. I don't think they should be too different because it's that implies that you have a persona online, and I like to do business more with people that what I see is what I get, and that's what you get with me, and that's the kind of people in terms of their brand that I want to do business with. The kind of people who it just flows with who they are. So I guess it's not staged. It's part of who they are.
Okay, Andrew asks, I use my own name as well as my trade name. Should I use one or the other, or is both confusing?
You can use both. Again, it very much all of these aren't more generalized because I don't know the specifics of the situation, so I'm going to be a little bit conservative in my answer because of that. But you can certainly use both. It really does depend. In my marketing morsels thing, for instance, I had the same deliberations. Did I want to be known as Debbie Benstein more, or Marketing Morsels more, or the two together? So if you look at the top of my website, it actually says the solution that I came to for me was it says Debbie Benstein's Marketing Morsels. And the reason that I did that was because I did want to trade on my knowledge, and I did want my name to be associated with it. But the main part in terms of the products and the knowledge is the marketing morsels, because that's the attraction. My name is, one of 20, 30 different people that you could find, online doing the same thing in the same little corner of the world. So I wanted to have the company name front and center as well. Now, in the future, I have absolutely no plans to sell this off, but because I'm more associating with the company brand, if you like, and my name is just on the top of it, in the future, if I did want to sell, it could turn into somebody else's marketing morsels because they're branded together, but they're not inextricably linked together. So you could actually take your name and combine it with the company name, and remove it sometimes and put it back sometimes, depending on your situations at the time. You can do it sometimes and not at other times, depending on what you're doing in that particular, with the point of that particular branding at that time.
Okay, great. While we're waiting for any last questions, let me put up the special gift you're giving people.
Okay.
Um, let me see how we do this display. Do you see it, Debbie?
I don't see it yet. Let me go into. I'm gonna hit the pop in. I see it's on the. I see it on the pop in now. Is that where I'm supposed to see it?
It's not showing on my screen. It was earlier when we tested it.
Perhaps we can ask people in a second if they can see it. If they click on the pop in tab, if they can see what's up there, and then we'll know if it's coming up for everybody.
I'm not sure they have a pop-in tab or whether it should just
Ah,
show automatically.
I don't know that.
I'm getting a Skype message.
I bet it's John.
Yeah, it is. I guess people are seeing it because John said he just subscribed. So I can see Google Hangouts is going to be a little bit of a challenge sometimes.
Oh, John for me says it's up. He says it's up.
Okay, good. It doesn't matter if it's up for me or not.
Okay. Thank you, John. All right. So really what I wanted to do with this bite-sized branding checklist is partly I wanted to show you how a branding looks. All my bite-sized guides have a logo and they have a big headline and they have a graphic, and it's very easy just to do that, and then it's recognizable as this is part of my series and people know that, so that's part of the brand. But I really wanted to give everybody a gift, and it's just a 2-page checklist of basically summarizing a lot of the things that we've talked about so that you have something that you can tick off and you say, well, where am I standing with these parts of the branding process that I need to do? And I hope it'll be helpful, and you can get that by clicking on the Get Started button, and I am asking that you sign up for my list at Marketing Morsels. I hope that that will be a useful and good thing for you to do, because I'm going to be giving away a lot of critical, I would say critical marketing information through that list. I'm not big on selling through that list at all. It's quality information. It's not something that sell everything and anything to anybody. It's not my style either. So I really wanted you to have just a summary, a checklist that you could start off from, and hopefully get your branding off the ground and start making real progress with it.
Yeah, I reviewed this particular checklist earlier before we started just because my curiosity knows no bounds, and it's only 2 pages, so it would definitely be called bite-sized or a morsel. But I think there's quite a bit of useful information contained in those 2 pages to get people thinking about what's involved in branding. So it's a very useful guide. I have to say, very well done.
Thank you. Thank you. That's also, by the way, if you're being consistent with your branding, that's very important to me. My bite-sized stuff is never going to be long. It's always going to be short and not fluffy, because that's part of my brand. And so whatever it is that you're doing with your brand, whatever it is, just make sure that everything that you're putting out fits in with the messages that you want to get across to your prospects and your customers. That's the key to everything in terms of making a brand work for you the way that a brand can work for you.
Okay, let me go back to chat. I don't know if I click on the chat tab whether people will lose that ability to ask for your to see your sign up there or not. Let's see what I missed.
Okay.
If anything. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this has been a challenge, but I've learned a lot with this first of our weekly web chats.
Yeah, me too.
So the next one will be smoother. Next one will be with Barb Lang, and I'll be announcing that soon. So watch for my email. I think in the following ones I'll have an email list that I subscribe people to for the weekly web chat, so that they'll
Okay.
be able to have one list that gets all the different notifications, as well as I did select a domain name, and I'm going to be putting a blog on there, and we'll be able to put the archives of the prior web chats. But since this is the first one, I figured I could get started without having that already yet, but I need to start working on that. Chaz says he just scanned your guide. Lots of goodness in a small package.
That's the aim. Thank you very much. That's exactly the point of it.
I don't know what people are seeing on their screen, but if there's a section on the right sidebar that says chat, polls, attendees, pop-ins, whatever, you want to click on pop-ins in order to see the offer. I wouldn't say offer because that implies that something's being sold, but it's an offer for a free guide.
It's free,
So
yeah.
just click on pop-ins, which is what I see as an administrator. I'm not sure if, and I'll ask John Paduchek, our Hangouts advisor, after we get off. To clear that up. Oh, if somebody's Skyping me, that might be John.
Skyping me too.
Yeah, okay. He says to put the link for sign up and admin as well. What would be that link?
That is.
Maybe you could type it, Debbie, or.
Hold on.
And then people will see it in the chat, just in case they didn't get the pop in.
Now I just need to check it 1 second. I'm just going to go and get the exact link for you. It's not actually attached to anything on my site right now, so hold on 1 second if you would.
Maybe I have it. Let me just type it in here.
I think I have it. Hold on.
Yeah, I've got it.
You've got it? Okay.
Yeah.
So you can go.
When I typed it in, it split it up into 2 lines, but Judy typed it in also. So thanks, Judy. I believe that other people can see everybody's chat, so which is nice. So thanks, Judy. Mine was sort of split over 2 lines, but that should do it.
Okay.
So, Debbie, any last words?
Get branding.
Yeah,
get branding. Really, really, it's good for you. It's good for your customers. It's something that you should be doing from the beginning. And if you haven't started doing it, it's not too late. Start branding yourselves. I'm available. I have on my website, I actually have an online chat, and I'm a real person, and I will answer questions through there. You can ask me questions. I'm happy to try and point people in the right direction. I will be writing more blog posts about this. Just start it. Just get branding. You'll see the results, and you'll be so happy you did.
Well, one negative I would say is if you start branding, it's not good for your competitors. So if that's an inspiration, depending on how you feel about your competitors, maybe that's something you should keep in mind.
I'm a big fan of cooperation rather than competition. So I think that so long as you're working with other good people who are in your field, you're all branding well, you're providing all of your potential clients. It's just win-win for everybody. That's the way it should be.
But you don't want them to get the business that you could have gotten just because you've done something or you've not done something that you should have done.
Right. No, you should be doing your own branding for sure. And then aligning yourself with other people who are doing good branding too.
Yeah.
Dennis, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you being here, and um, one thing people may have noticed is that on your visual, your lower third, the at least what I'm seeing has been a little bit pixelated. I think because of the quality of the bandwidth or whatever on Debbie's end or whoever's end. So don't take that as the fact that that's her brand, because her actual signature and graphics and tagline and whatever is certainly top quality. But we don't have control over some things. But if you went to her website, which is marketingmorsels.com, as we said, you'll see an example of how she really does it in operation, and maybe use it as a template. I don't think she would mind so much. But the other thing is the chat that we've had probably won't show up on the replay. So let me just say what it is. It's marketingmorsels.com/branding-checklist. And if you type that into a URL bar in Firefox or Chrome or Internet Explorer or whatever you're using, you should be able to go to that page and download after you sign up to Debbie's email list, which I suspect, like she said, she doesn't market the heck out of it because she's branded herself as someone that provides good bite-sized morsels of information from time to time, and she doesn't want to overstuff you with what she's feeding you there.
Oh, that's a nice. See, it's a very extendable brand. Dennis has just done that for me. Thank you, Dennis.
There's plenty of things you can do with it, and maybe you haven't done it all yet. So there's plenty of room to grow there, and not in a very weighty kind of way. marketingmorsels.com/branding-checklist.
Right.
And if you didn't get that, you can always send me an email. Most people that are listening to the sound of my voice know how to get a hold of me, and I'll be glad to provide it. So with that being said, I think the questions have dried up. And again, Debbie, thank you for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for answering all the questions. And I hope that you've inspired a lot of people today, and a lot of people that will listen to the replay. So that's a good thing.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I'm going to stop the broadcast, and thank you for being with us. It's been going on for almost an hour and a half, and that's a lot longer than we had expected.
Wow.
But time flies, doesn't it? So goodbye, and thanks, and good luck with your branding.